Travel, fight, flashback, victory. Then on to the next thing is the exact same storyline over and over again.
That is the storyline of Rent a Girlfriend. You're so
No,
right.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you put these kind of like animes in a position where you think it's so exciting. Like, you have this adventurer, this hero that's going out to discover new lands and do new things, the development of character. But it's literally the same thing over and over.
Not over and over, and over half those animes is because it works. It's the same formula because that formula
Yeah,
works.
it works for 5-year-olds. Okay, it doesn't work for any level of complex analysis.
Well, what was I saying? Oh yeah, formula. It works, bro. You're entertained by these formulas, are you not?
No,
I see you
I'm not
watching
at all
them.
entertained by these formulas. There's something to watch, yeah, fine, but it's not like I'm necessarily enjoying it. It's fun. Wait. Once again, I'll go back to it's nice to sit there and not think. And it's a simple mind that repeats the same simple formula over and over again. And I don't even blame the animes, the people making the animes. I'm blaming the people that keep watching it over and over and over again. It's nothing new.
There is something new. Have you seen over half the new animes? Fire Force is a great example of this because it introduced two different stories connected by a beginning and an end.
Yes, Fire Force, Police Squad. What do you call it? Kind of like what? Like anything else that you can? Doctors on patrol, whatever. It's the same formula, just changing the setting and the structure of it in a way that just makes it look new and nuanced when it's not.
So you would think of something like Psychopath as the same formula that they've been using for...
And as long as we're talking about things that we don't like, I don't appreciate the fact that you're touching my graduation stuff. Who told you to touch my hood or my mortar plate hat?
The same person who said you could touch my mangas.
You said I could touch your mangas. Yeah,
Only
you're right. I'm the one sneaking.
Why are you touching my Steel Ball
Dude,
Run?
Your stuff is in my office, which means I can touch whatever is in my office. You're lucky I don't get like a freaking burn pit outside and start throwing your plastic and paint in there.
Some things in your office, but I also have manga in my room, and I catch you reading those all the time, man.
That is such a ridiculous. Reading them all the time.
Still doing this? You know I don't feel good, right? I like anime, I like literature, I like books, and manga. I like both. Both are great. Good now?
Anime can inspire creativity and encourage the development of critical thinking skills through its rich narratives and intricate character development. Universities have an ivory tower mentality, so they hesitate to teach anime because of the perception that it lacks academic rigor compared to traditional subjects. Bridging the gap between different forms of written literature and animated media, anime has the same laudable themes of overcoming adversity and speak to the human condition. But both of my parents, who are college professors, do not see it that way. They look down on anime. In order to combat this, my brother and I snuck into the professor's office and turned it into our podcast studio and filled it with manga and other anime items.
So please, join my brother and I as we try to convince people.
Our father, the professor.
People.
Our father, the
People.
professor.
People to watch anime. Relax. Chill out. Just watch some anime. We good? Done?
Hello and welcome back to a new series that we are starting called Professor's Corner. So in this series have two professors and they're just gonna talk and debate ideas. At this side of the table we have my dad, Dr. David Valadares. You have a doctorate in English, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm. No,
Oh,
I'm
history, master's in English.
Mm-hmm.
And in this corner we have Dr. Kroom. Dr. Thomas Kroom, that was it. I don't know what your PhD is in.
Political science.
Political science, okay. So, as you can tell, we got two good contenders, and it's going to be real interesting from here on out. So, you want to start talking off of why you got a PhD in history of all the topics?
Not really, Nathaniel. I'd rather talk about why I'm so excited that Dr. Kroom is here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Yeah, how's Tallahassee?
It's hot recently.
Yeah.
But it's Tallahassee, Tallytown, you know.
Yeah, how long have we known each other for?
Oh, how old are you guys? A long time. 10 years, 12 years, 15, somewhere in that time frame.
How long have you been teaching?
About the same.
Same time?
More than 10 years, maybe 15 at the university college level. Taught when I was younger, things like chemistry and science, but and then we homeschool, so I teach our kids all the time. My wife does a lot of teaching. Mostly she teaches and I fill in the gaps.
So, Nathaniel, how would you like this to be structured? Are we going to be just talking to each other, or do you want to actually bring in the topic of anime?
So, I am going to ask you questions about anime, not about like certain stories in anime, but just the general ideas that they have.
Mhm.
And so you guys can debate about it, agree on it, disagree on it, whatever you want. But I'm just going to throw out an idea and you guys say what you think, that kind of thing, you know?
Okay.
So I don't want to get into the first question because I do want to know why you got a doctorate in history.
Oh, sure. Okay, we'll stick to that. I mean, good question. It was kind of funny. At first, when I wanted to study, I thought I was going to go into law until I realized that I wanted to like research and teach. You know, when I was in law school for the brief period that I was, I did a lot of work in anywhere from the public defender's office to collections to that was fun to the clerk for the Eighth Judicial Circuit Court for Dependency Court. I did a lot of different stuff. And I remember I was married to your mom at the time. I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily want to do this. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I would like to teach. And she's like, what do you want to teach? And I had a bachelor's at the time in English and history from the University of Florida. And so I'm like, I don't know. I guess I want to do history. And so applied to a couple of universities, got the best offer from Florida State University, went to Florida State. And the funny thing is, even though I got my PhD in history and all my research and all of my kind of like work is in history, I've taught English primarily my entire life because I also have a master's in English.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a combination of studying rhetoric and a study in history. And I think they're very closely related to each other. So I think one feeds into the strength. Sometimes it's not good to be so separated and kind of like modularized in your thinking. You want to have something that's called consilience, in which you can see connected points between different areas of study. And so it's kind of strange whenever in the past when I applied for a job, they would look at me and like, let me get this straight. You've taught English your entire life. I'm like, yes. Like, but your PhD in publications in history. I'm like, yes. And then they'll repeat it again. I'm like, just get over it. It's fine. You know, I've taught history. I've taught English. Having both degrees, I don't think is a bad thing. But if you ask me what my main area of study is, it's history.
Okay. Why did you get a PhD in political science?
Well, I don't think it's a funny story, but it might be an interesting one. When I was really your age, I was pretty good in high school in math and science, the sciences. And when it came time to go to college, I was kind of tired of that, and I wanted to do something different. So I went to undergrad for initially political science, and my first couple of years were I had a lot of fun, but it was difficult. I had a lot of conflict with the professors and the concepts. And the problem was I really didn't know anything about politics, political life, ideology, culture, really. I was just in college. And that was unsatisfying. So I switched back to what I knew, and I actually studied chemistry and zoology for a number of years and was going to double major and go to medical school. And then I got sick and was in the hospital for a while and realized I didn't like being in the hospital and being around sick people. And so, but I was too close to graduation to
Drop
switch
out.
or drop or anything. So I finished one degree, got my degree and left, and got into politics. I got involved in politics and student council and all that stuff in college at North Carolina State University. So my undergrad is actually in chemistry. But then I worked at a think tank for a while, met my wife there, and we ended up in Florida and working for the government for a little bit, Department of Agriculture. Went back to school, got a master's at Florida State in political science. It's an applied degree. They have a master's in applied politics at Florida State. It's a great program. But it's basically, a lot of it's campaign related, a lot of which I already knew from my experiences. And I did a little consulting and got a little bored. And my wife said, well, why don't you go get a PhD? Like, that's just something, you're bored, go do that. And
Perfect pastime.
I went to Florida State, said, hey, what do I have to do to get in here? And they told me, and I did it, and they let me in for some reason. And the rest is kind of history. I was there for a while, and I really enjoy politics and teaching about politics and political science. But I would say my background is more of a political than an applied background rather than an academic one.
Okay, thank you both for the background on your credentials and why you got PhDs in certain areas. I think yours is kind of more funny because your wife was just like, you're bored, go get a PhD. Right. It's the first time I've heard
Who
that.
does that, right?
Yeah, but
I think more people than you know.
It's less than 2%.
Okay.
So it's not that many. More people than I know.
Right.
But
because if people are bored all the time, everyone would have a doctorate, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is, though this is kind of just a new podcast, Professor's Corner, I still want to stay on the topic that is anime and manga, but not like heavy, just like I said, throwing ideas out there and you guys discuss them. So that one poem that's like, if the pen is mightier than the sword and a picture equals 1,000 words. You know that one?
Is that a poem?
Like a riddle.
Oh, I thought it was a poem.
Those are just sayings, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted
Adages,
to,
axioms.
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask is, if the pen is mightier than the sword and a picture equals 1,000 words, what is manga? Because it's the combination of both, if you really think about it.
Okay, buddy, do you want me to go through the description and you give the answer, or you want to do it vice versa?
I mean, manga is just a comic book from Asia, right?
Yeah, something like that. Well, let's go ahead and break it down into its pieces, okay, Nathaniel? The first one is, if you look at the pen is mightier than the sword, all it is, if you break down the adage pretty slowly, is just that the pen has power, right? Usually when you look through history, extensions of power have to come into the form of like might is right, but actually the power comes in how you shape ideas, how you're able to communicate. I mean, if you go to a level of kind of like college, you can have military schools, you can have academic schools, but there's no question that when it comes to policy, when it comes to structures of society, structures of government, when you look at the foundation of the United States, you look at its founding documents, it's a promulgation, right? The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. It's like, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, here is what has been stated. So let it be, has it been said, so let it be done kind of concept. And so the adage is going that power is really in the pen, not in the sword. If you look at the second one, right, of a picture is worth 1,000 words, if you look at that adage, it's just that visualizations can convey depth, can convey meaning. One area in literary theory, I don't know if you read Roland Barthes, but Roland Barthes has the idea of the death of the author, right? That is not the author's intent of an information that's meant to be conveyed that's important. It's your own interpretation. So when you look at a Monet, when you look at a Da Vinci, when you look at whatever, it can speak 1,000 different messages to 1,000 different people. And that can be conveyed with thoughts that lie too deep, kind of like for emotional experience. And so visualizations provide those things. I think we talked about on one of the podcasts, Wittgenstein, that discussed that people don't talk in words, they communicate in images, or they don't communicate in words, they communicate in images. And so the idea is that if the pen is more powerful than the sword, if a picture can convey 1,000 words in a given instance, then what's manga, Dr. Kroom?
Well, really quick, I just wanted to correct you. It's Liechtenstein, not Wittgenstein.
No,
No.
it's Wittgenstein.
It is?
Liechtenstein's an artist.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
talking
you were
about
talking about the other guy.
No, I'm talking about the philosopher Wittgenstein.
Oh my. Okay, I thought you were talking about
It
Liechtenstein.
actually starts with a W.
Because
It's
no,
just
we
pronounced Wittgen.
we didn't go over that guy. We went over Liechtenstein.
We're getting our Steins confused.
Yes.
We need a Stein.
Yeah, Stein. Don't make this go a lot different. That's
Really
really
a lot looser here.
if you want a real professor's corner, it's the corner of like
A library?
they're trying some different like
Pipes
pilsners or
and
something. Yeah,
cigars and
yeah.
Steins.
Pontification functions a lot better when you have a little bit of what.
Calvin had a daily ration of like a gallon of wine in his contract. John Calvin. Right.
That's why I prefer Calvin over Rousseau.
Oh, that answers a lot, actually. Okay, but wait, back to topic. So, what was your final point?
The final point is to break down the two kind of like different like maxims that you provided, right?
Okay.
So now we're going to combine them both because I see what you're saying when it comes to manga and anime. That's a combination of the word
Mhm.
and of a visualization. And I get how you're trying to optimize that.
Well, interesting direction you went in there. Because when I think of manga or comic books, it's just a combination of art and some form of literature. It's a written communication. So I don't know if it's meant to entertain or meant to wow us, put us in a state of awe. I mean, I'm not sure that manga does that, but or manhwa or mana or whatever, depending on where it's from, or any comic book for that matter. Any book can sort of get you and have that moment, and you can connect with people like you connect with art. You start talking about pen is mightier than the sword and the communication of power and ideas and reference the Constitution. And
I did that just for you, the reference.
yeah. I mean, it reminded me of when the founders drafted the Constitution, and there's this, question to, I think it was Madison, like, what does it mean? What does the Constitution mean? Explain this. Because pretty famously, there's no notes from Constitution Hall from the period of writing the Constitution. Or there weren't any really. There are notes. Let me back step on that. There are notes, but they weren't released, and there was this sort of cone of silence in Philadelphia. And but anyway, Madison, I think it was Madison. Might have been Ben Franklin. I want to say it's Madison though. When asked like, what does it mean? His response was, it means whatever the American people say it means, right? It's meant to be applied. And so it's going to be applied in many different ways by many different peoples throughout the states, and it'll be interpreted differently. And in that sort of conflict is where we find stability and meaning. And so, maybe all of this sort of cultural discussion, or like, what is manga? Is it worthy of examination? Does it communicate any important ideas? Maybe that's similar to any discussion of any great work of literature or great piece of art. Like, what does it mean? You stand there and look at it,
Yeah.
What is the Mona Lisa smiling or frowning or, but I don't look too deeply into manga or anime.
Okay.
And I certainly don't personally have that response. It's more of a form of entertainment, which I might come back around to later as we talk more.
Let's kind of stay on that point that you made about what do you call it, the description, the connection of manga being entertainment. And I don't think it goes too far from that. Like when I watch anime, it's not like I sit back and I'm having like a critical eye. You can grab any artifact, anything, and evaluate it, analyze it, provide critical thinking. That's fine. But usually you're sitting on the couch with some friends watching some anime for some entertainment. And so my question to you is, the concept of anime being entertainment, does that mean that it excludes it by the sense of it coring being something that's supposed to be enjoyable and consumed out of the oeuvre or the body of work or the canon of an ivory tower college area of study?
Kind of thinking of two things here. So modern entertainment, I would say absolutely, if we're thinking about like modern music, modern art, comic books, that's pure entertainment, storytelling, novels. Although I don't remember the guy's name. You might know this, a pretty famous professor at FSU wrote the sequel to The Godfather, one of the follow-up books of The Godfather. Yeah. Like he's made a whole career
Yeah.
out of studying
Right.
that sort of
Weingartner.
entertainment literature.
Weingartner,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty fantastic. But which I got my PhD and master's at Florida State, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Go Knowles. Right here in the heart of Gator country. What was I saying? So entertainment. I mean, I might come to this. What is manga or manhwa or any of that in terms of art or literature? I don't view it the same way that I would view like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or Dickens or any American author, even somebody like Edgar Allan Poe, or who were making a buck, trying to make some money, selling great stories, creating new ideas. But or you think of like Great American, the detective novel, or like science fiction, like those are entertaining, and yet some have risen to the level of political commentary or social commentary, like Dickens. So I assume I would assume there's some form of entertainment value, while there's the commentary on social life. I mean, was it 1984? Fahrenheit 451, right? These are great examples of, hey, no, I'm not talking about communism and totalitarian. I'm just telling an Animal Farm, right? Like, I'm just telling a story here, or Grapes of Wrath. I mean, these are great works of literature that are important, and we teach them and we study them and we pull messages from them. But the message from the author was, I'm writing in communist Russia. I'm not commenting on the ruling class. I'm just writing a story about people's lives, and it's, there's a blurred line there.
Sure.
Some of it rises to that level and it's more important than others, but it's because it makes some commentary on culture, society, whatever. And we could probably go there with manga. We talk about the disaffected culture, modern day culture, young males, or, the lack of conflict in the world in terms of traditional historical, fighting for whether it's imperialistic or Western liberal ideas or whatever. Like those things seem to have been consumed by discussion and less physical, and people seem lost, and I see a lot of that in manga, these heroes that rise up and they're defeating evil, and I just, sort of, spoiler alert, a lot of it for me is good versus evil, is where the value is, not in its literary quality, right? But that's not my field.
Right.
So I'm not a literary critique, if that's even the right term. That's not what I do. I just consume it. My kids read it, watch it, and we have discussions about some of it. But there's a whole background there. I'd rather talk more about like our approach to education and why I'm okay with anime. I generally don't like it. I don't like its impact on youth or on culture. I'm generally negative towards it, circumstantially, right? And it's more commentary on modern education and what kids know, what people know, and what they're expressing through it, rather than the value of the art form or its literary value in and of itself. So
we can be in agreement that when it comes to literature being a sense of social commentary and entertainment viable, visualizations as a form of social commentary and being viable, we're good with that. But when they were doing a previous podcast, they were going over Time Machine. Of course, you can go over the H.G. Wells narrative book, which we read through before the podcast. But then they had a graphic novel on the Time Machine, right? Would you consider one to be higher than the other?
So would I consider a visual format of a literary work to be better or worse than the mind is more powerful than the eyes, right? So your imagination gives more context, more depth, more details than, or I should say the graphic novel constrains the mind to what's presented, and then that becomes fixed in the head, right? So that image, that character, his hair color, his personage, right? The visualization becomes the one that you associate with that story, and that is the one that the artist gives to the story, which may not even be the same one that the writer intended when he wrote the script for the book or the novel or whatever. So I would imagine that the literary form would be more expansive, but if the intent there is to crystallize the idea of the artist or the writer, then the graphic novel would be better. I'm going to go both ways on that.
So the graphic novel, if it didn't originate with a graphic novel, would be derivative. So if you
yes,
grabbed a
derivative's a good term. Yes.
if you grabbed a graphic novel and then turned it into a straight narrative, then it would be weaker. So you're not actually
Yes.
making a critique of the form itself. You're making a critique of what was the original production.
Yeah, there would be a process there, and derivative's a great idea. That's one I'd like to come back to, where it's like when we talk about the value of these things. You want me I'll say that now.
Yeah,
I
go
mean, do I think it's high art? Do I think it's high literature? Is it worthy of study? In short, no, because it's derivative. I would relate it to modern music. If we compare that to classical, the foundation of sort of beauty in music, it's not the same. It's not. It's a derivative piece. You take a symphony orchestra. Right? My daughter plays one of my daughters plays a lot of classical, and she plays violin. So in the symphony, you've got all the pieces, the arrangement, the composer. It comes together and it creates this entire scene and feeling and moment in time. And you can do that with individual pieces. You have solos, and you might take a violin or you take a cello out, and then it's just the individual piece. You have pieces created specifically for those instruments, but that instrument as a piece or a part of the larger creates a more beautiful work of art. When it's the individual, we're looking at them and their artistic creativity, abilities, skills, and it's really about them and not about the idea. I would bet that some of these artists would say their job is to actually perform or present a piece where you consume the music and the feeling, and that you don't notice the artist. Like that's their true power, or a true professional can perform in such a way that they're removing themselves, and then it stands on its own. When I think about Taylor Swift, right? I mean, what is that? It's 3 notes, three chords and a hook.
4 chords.
4 chords and a hook. It just depends on the song. And she even pretty famously learned that from country music, and country music has got a pretty standard repertoire. You look at somebody like, what's his name? My mom's going to kill me. I can't remember the name. It'll come back to me. I'm getting older. It'll come back to me. Or, great example here on the manga. Like, what is K-pop? Is that high art? Is that high music? I mean, do I look at Korean pop?
Music.
Right. I mean, do I look at K-pop and go, oh yeah, it's like Mozart, Bach. That's classic. That makes me feel. I mean, that's derivative drivel compared to the great classic works of music. And manga, comic books are derivative of novels and literature. And in fact, all literature, I mean, there's no story that isn't derived from the Bible, Shakespeare, or mythology. All of those encompass like the total human condition, the types, the personalities, the dramas, the storylines, the conflict. They're just retold over and over and over in different formats, different presentations. Every movie, every novel, every story is some retelling of a story, a Bible, a personality type from the Bible, from Shakespeare, from mythology, right? And that was the purpose of those foundational works. We study those. We don't. But do you study the derivative in the same way? And if you do, really, is it just to point back to those foundational concepts and how they've steered away or steered towards or help us better understand them? Well, then maybe there's some value. But if it's pure entertainment, I don't know if entertainment's worthy of deep study. I mean, somebody's going to find it interesting. That's the beauty of academia. Everybody can, there's a spot where you can study your individual thing and add to the corpus of knowledge and information. But is it valuable to society? You consume it, you move on,
The core aspect of the argument I agree with. If you're making the argument that the copy is never as great as the original, right? We literally talked about the idea when we were discussing Carl Jung of even that kind of concept of the archetypes, that the structure of archetype is always derived from some kind of practice that came before it. And so in itself, it's a hollow man, it's a straw man, it's like a what do you call skeletal structure of things. It's not like the original because there's not any kind of true expression of what that item would be, right? So I understand that and I agree with that. But let's talk about the idea of derivative. Everything's derivative. Absolutely everything is derivative. If you go to a sense of study, like for instance, look at any great composer. If all of a sudden I write a symphony that's an extension of the style of Bach, it would still be considered something that would be valuable just within its application of structure or orchestra. Because the nature of an orchestra, it's complicated. It's multiple pieces. There's a beauty. There's an appreciation for it. There's the different sections, the winds, the strings, whatever it may be, to communicate what was in the mind of the composer, of the conductor, wherever that may be. But that doesn't mean that it is made less because it's a derivative from Bach. Bach, if he gave any time or stance to study at all, is a derivation. When I structured and formed my ideas when it comes to the interpretation of history, it wasn't just what I've stumbled across, it's what I was shown, it's what I was taught. So for instance, I remember I was having a little bit of a tough time in history when I first started studying as a master's student. And I had one professor who kind of like coagulated the whole thing for me to a sense of understanding. He said, listen, David, you're going in a lot of different directions, but in the end, what history does is primarily one of three things. Either it's answering a question, testing a theory, or filling in a gap in the literature. That's what you're doing. And by providing those parameters, like, oh, I get it. Theoretical application, historiographical expansion, trying to do a different lens of interpretation with sources. Now I know what we're doing. And one of the first things you do when you're about to either write a monograph or write a book or do a dissertation, whatever that may be, is you have to first rely on the literature, rely on the method, rely on the approaches. All those approaches and methods that you were taught to and formed could be considered a derivation of thinking that was established before you, which means if I form any ideas, any structures of critique, any form of analysis which falls within the parameters of what's considered to ideal, how is that not considered a derivation and a copy of what I was taught?
I don't know that I agree. You always start with the literature. It's one of the first steps in crafting a journal article or writing a monograph or whatever. It's you've got to do that lit review to see what's come before. But I don't know that it's true that every paper or monograph or idea is derived.
It could be distinct to
from
history,
a lit
right?
review, right? So, well, I just mean in the ideas of sort of a pure science, get into inductive versus deductive and which comes first, the observation or the theory. If you're starting with a lit review, you're starting by running down that map of observations and experiences and tests that have come before and have found, some result or hasn't. And you're saying, well, what about this? You're looking for the gap, right? And that is certainly a form of scholarship. But pure science is trying to think about the mysteries of the cosmos, or think about the mysteries of your field. And you're trying to explain something that can't be explained, which by its very nature means there's no lit review that's going to lead you to that particular circumstance, right? Unless you're specifically looking at a problem in the field. But, pure math derives these certain things that should exist. Einstein comes up with all these ideas, and this should happen, this should happen, this should happen. And then it's left to everyone to figure out how to do that, how to find that, what circumstance would we experience. And there's no lit review for that. There's just a guy who took a long walk and had an idea, and so I don't know that that's always necessarily true.
But do you have a pejorative when it comes to anything that you consider to be derivative?
A pejorative?
Like just a negative point of view? Like if you consider something derivative, do you immediately go with a critique of lessening the value and quality?
No, going back to the idea of it being entertainment, like if it's worthy of consumption, I enjoyed it, then it's worth my time. It has value. If it's not, then I don't. I give you a great example that I think is, might be controversial here. Certainly, my wife and I disagree on this. Anna Karenina, right? It's great, classic work. I absolutely hate it, and the reason is not because I hate the text, but I hate the ending. Like it's such a dense,
Subverted your expectation.
It's so dense, and it takes a while to really buy into those characters and the depth of each of them. And in the end, spoiler alert, she just tosses herself in front of a train, and it's like, I invested hours upon hours in this text and these characters in this story, and you threw yourself in front of a train. Like it's
The worst part is the reference is so immediate and quick. It's like a couple of lines, and you're like, "Wait, what happened?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, that was rotten. I can't. Oh, I hate that. Absolutely hate it. And it's like, at that point, it's like there was no lesson, there was no value. They just tossed themselves in. Now I'm sure that literary scholars would be like, oh, there's all kinds of stuff in that.
Not with a bang, but a whimper.
But that's what I'm left with, and entertainment, the subjectiveness of the reader, which is not what I consider to be the primary roles of sort of scientific exploration. It's more objective, like what is truth? Is it right or wrong, on and off, black and white? Is like, can I measure it? Can I touch it? Can I feel it? A more positivist sort of approach has always been my approach. Like, I don't deal in subjective feelings just personally or really as a political scientist. I think those are dangerous. Feelings are dangerous. And it's the exploration of those in an academic way seems nonsensical to me. I'm sure every qualitative scientist right now is like, what? But that's just, that's my approach. My thoughts on that.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Anime and manga is going up drastically in popularity.
Sure.
It's a fact that in Japan there's more mangas than there is like toilet paper. More paper used on manga, believe it or not.
Interesting comparison.
I'm just saying it's like going up.
It means it's essential.
Dude, it's like going up huge in popularity, right? So what I wanted to ask is, does popularity equal quality?
Did the grocery stores run out of manga when COVID hit and there was no more transportation?
No, everyone liked their manga too much to be used. When you get that desperate when you're using manga, there's a problem.
Because Walmart was definitely out of toilet paper.
Just use the multitude of isekai.
I'm sorry. So say that again. What is the?
Does popularity equal quality? Is what I wanted to ask.
Let me preface this by saying I've watched some of you guys' episodes. Right, I enjoy it immensely. I think you guys are doing a great job. By the way, like shout out.
Yeah, good job, Nathaniel. Good job, David.
Not just on hosting, but also production. David. You're doing a great job. But I've seen all the episodes. Your uncle was talking about comic books. I was like, wow, he really knows comic books. I had an experience with comic books when I was a kid. It was very limited. I read a few, got attracted to it by a particular artist and style and a couple storylines, and then started getting into the depth of it. And like, he was all over Superman. And at that time I was all about X-Men and Spider-Man. And you start collecting and you're like, whoa, there's like tons of this stuff. I'm not getting into this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a high quality art form that attracted my attention to comic books initially. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I sort of assessed the depth of research that would be required to really understand it. I was like, I don't want any part of this. But it reminds me of, when I was, when anime, 80s, 90s, I think, when it was Voltron and all the sort of mechanistic airplanes that turn into robots and all
Gundam
that.
style.
And Gundam style, and like the battleship, the space battleships and all that kind of stuff. Was it Yakamoto?
Yeah.
It's like, that was my experience as a kid. That was interesting, and it was like sci-fi and in a visual format for kids, and that was pretty cool. And it was all the classic sort of pirate stories
Yeah.
and ships that I think all the youth of the 1800s and grew up on. So derivative in that sense, different artistic style, but similar stories told over again. More recent anime, things like Naruto,
That ain't
Dragon Ball Z. What I'm talking about is like that was sort of the foundational. I think the things that really got big. There's thousands of episodes of those things. And my son will be like, I'm not getting into that. There's too many episodes. I don't have time for that.
Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho were the two
But
big ones.
think
that
about the
established it.
artistic style of those. It's very childish. It's very youthful. It's very simple. It's more comic book in a sort of animated version. And then what you guys started with in your series was Solo Leveling. And my understanding of Solo Leveling sort of development is one of the things that really caused it to explode in Korea and Japan was the higher quality of artwork in that presentation. It was just better. And Solo Leveling has had this international exposure that I would argue is because it's of a higher quality. And so it's more popular because it's better in terms of the presentation of it, artwork.
It won Anime of the Year.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. But
Very popular.
is it an important literary work? Is it art on the level of Michelangelo or Da Vinci? Is it a masterpiece? Is it, or even like, you guys mentioned Liechtenstein, that was a derivative intentional commentary.
Right.
I mean, a great
Satire.
master artist is somebody who learns or becomes a master of the basics, and then they break the rules intentionally to create a commentary. Is that what anime is doing? Like, have you reached a point where people are breaking the rules intentionally to make a commentary? Or is it just better graphics? It's like, think about video games. They've increased in popularity because the graphics are better, the storyline's better. It's more entertaining. Is it important social commentary? I mean, some of these have turned into movies. I hear the direction of the what do you call it? Straight to home or whatever movie development, movie industry is going to be in developing games because the storylines exist already. It's like they're just getting lazier. It exists. The story is developed. The characters developed. We have the visuals. It's already. Let's just put a well-known actor behind it and give it that high-quality movie production, and then we'll make even more money off of it with very little development investment. It's like, is that art? Or is that just entertainment? I'm not studying that. Like a film school study that. Here's how you can be successful, right? But we're not studying it for its social commentary and its impact on society. Nobody's going to look back 2,000 years and be like, oh, they took Call of Duty and made it into a movie. We've had tons of war movies, right? And some of those are meant to have a commentary. Some are entertainment. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s, what was that one? You know what I'm talking about?
With the Oppenheimer?
No.
Iron Man.
No.
Then
Are
I'm
you talking about a war movie or what?
Yeah. With
What
I
is it?
can't remember the name of it.
Say it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait,
Tropic
wait.
Thunder.
Tropic Thunder. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's a
I thought you were talking
commentary.
Yeah.
That's more of a commentary on sort of the movie
Got
making
nominated for an
industry,
Academy Award.
and it's using sort of that context or the usage of military or war films in order to say something about making, like that really blurs the line for me. Like, is this entertainment? Is this commentary? Is this about the industry? Is this a comedy? I mean, it's all of those things all at the same time, but I'm not studying it. I don't know that are people studying Tropic Thunder, writing dissertations on it? Is it valuable in that sense? Somebody will probably write in and be like, yes, here it is. But I don't know.
Thank you guys so much for checking out my channel. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button, like, and share the video for more. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the notification bell for more videos when they're uploaded. And so we can show our father that anime is worth his time.